Hey everybody, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and I want to welcome you to a very special episode. Today marks my 100th episode that I filmed over the last year or so, and I just want to thank you that I still wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for people reaching out and watching the show and liking and subscribing. The channel has continued to grow, and I just want to thank you all for the continued support. And I appreciate everybody reaching out and commenting on the videos. I do this for fun. I show you a little bit of my experience, and I talk about the books that interest me, whether I'm selling them, keeping in my collection, or just give you some personal backstories of the books that I have been enjoying over the years. But today also, I was thinking about what was I going to talk about for this episode. Was it just going to be another unboxing? Was it going to be a CGC unboxing or a reveal? Something like that. And I'm sitting here today. I had just released this morning. I had just put out the 99th episode this morning, and that's when I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers, Moneyball Comics, and he mentioned on the video that Tom Palmer had passed away. Now, Tom Palmer is one of the greatest American artists out there for Marvel Comics, mostly over the years. If you guys haven't seen his work, and I'm sure you have, he's known for his Avengers runs, both of them with John Buscema. You've got X-Men and Avengers with Neil Adams. Legendary run with Gene Colan on Tomb of Dracula, and he also worked with him on Daredevil and what was the other thing? There was one more. Doctor Strange. What am I thinking? Doctor Strange. In fact, from what I was reading, Doctor Strange was the first Marvel work that Tom Palmer had done back in 1968. So, yeah, great run on those books. He also worked with John Byrne on the X-Men, The Hidden Years books. He worked with John Romita Jr. on Kick-Ass and I think World War Hulk as well. Maybe some other issues. I'm not sure about that one. And not to mention working with people like Howard Chaykin, Walt Simonson, and Ron Frenz on books like Star Wars. And I think Ron Frenzy probably did, I'm not sure if he did some Spider-Girl or not, but I know he did work on the Star Wars stuff. And that's just to mention just a few of the things that he worked on. And so I figured, let's talk about him. He deserves to be mentioned just as much as George Perez and Neil Adams, who have just recently passed as well. This is a legend, everyone. This is an absolute legend in the field. Um, he means the world to me as an inker. I loved comics, but it wasn't until I ran into his Avengers books, issues 70, I want to say 74 through 85 or 85 through, I always get that wrong. It's about a 10 issue run right there. In fact, I've got issue number 79 sitting right here. And it wasn't until I read these when I was young. I think I was probably just into junior high at the time, and I started buying back issues. And these weren't the original books I was buying, but once I bought some of these books and I saw the art on there, and I'm going, wow, this is another level. This is so much better than everything I've ever seen. Um, Different. I mean, I'm not saying he's better than, say, a um, Joe Sinnott, for example, or Sinnott. How do you say that? But it's just a different. It was just a different breed. It brought a level of realism to the artwork, and it was just fantastic. And I just remember falling in love with that artwork. So I thought I'd talk to you guys a little bit about Tom and my experience with him, and show you some of the things that I've gotten over the years signed by him. And I hope you enjoy this. It shows off a little bit of my collection, things that you haven't necessarily seen. Yes, you've seen this book. I've actually bought several graded versions of this particular book. This right here, my favorite comic book of all time. You've got the Avengers taking on the Lethal Legion. You've got the kind of the reveal that Wonder Man and the Vision have a connection. Of course, Grim Reaper is Simon Williams, Wonder Man's brother, half brother, I believe. Just great villains. You got man ape in there. He's taking on Quicksilver and Captain America. Just a beautiful battle scene. But I just want to start with this. This is my favorite comic of all time. I just wanted you guys to see that. And I'm going to show you some of the things that I've gotten signed by Tom over the years, and I'll talk to you a little bit about my experience with him. So let's start off with the some of the fun stuff. This right here was a print, it's a production sale basically, that from the legendary run with Neil Adams on X-Men. And a number of years ago, I got into some of this pseudo production art. It wasn't original art, and after looking at it, you kind of realize it's like, what do they really use these for? I mean, I'm in the graphic design field, and I never saw production separations quite like these. But in the end, I didn't really care because I thought of these mostly as prints. But you'll see I've got Tom Palmer signed this, and then a few years later, I got Neil Adams. Sorry about the light. I'll just leave it right here. And then this last summer, just a few weeks ago, in fact, at Heroes Con, I was able to get Roy Thomas to sign that. And some more things that Roy Thomas actually signed just a few weeks ago. This is a larger production sale, 11 by 17. One of the Avengers issues. I want to say, I'm not sure which issue this was right off, but you can see Tom's signature down there. There's Roy Thomas. Now, unfortunately, I got into this way too late. The great John Buscema had already passed many years ago at this point, so obviously no chance of getting him to sign any of this. This was a slightly different kind of production cell. This is a photostat with a transparent top. Roy Thomas again. There's Tom Palmer down at the bottom. Now, I think this issue actually, Sal Buscema did the interior art. So that's something that Sal's still with us and everything. One of the great Marvel legends as well. I'd love to get him to sign that. But anyway, yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to show you some of the art. Some of this you've seen in the background back here. I've got these I pulled off the wall. This is from issue number 79. Great half-page splash with the Grim Reaper. Again, Tom signed it, and Roy Thomas signed it. They're both off to the side over here. And as I said, these are fun pieces. Never really considered any of these things for sale. Now here's a beautiful, beautiful splash page from one of the other early Avenger pages. Again, Roy Thomas signed it this summer, and there's Tom's signature on that. And so what I'll do is I want to talk to you a little bit about my experience with Tom Palmer. It's like I'd been a fan from afar for many years. This is not really good. Let me show you this real quick. See if I can do it without the light. This, ooh, that's awful. Let me see if you can see that. This is an illustration from Tom Palmer. It's a print, of course. And I'm showing you off my ring light there. Okay, that was awful. Yeah, I'm just going to set it here. I know you won't be able to see the whole thing. But this was I remember seeing this for many years. And my first experience with Tom was when he finally came to the Baltimore Comic-Con. I want to say probably at this point 7, 8 years ago at this point. And I was ecstatic. I was so excited to be able to get to meet one of my legends, guys that I just absolutely admired. As a graphic designer in college, I really didn't go into it for graphic design. I went into it to be an illustrator, and he was one of my inspirations. He was just the way he inked things, but also, if you know Tom Palmer, you know the use of the Zipatone to create shading and patterns and things, and he was just known for that, and it's just absolutely gorgeous use of it. I never could. I obviously didn't go on to be an illustrator, but I did try to emulate some of his techniques during my time there in college. And but I remember seeing this as a kid being advertised. I'm not sure how old this is, but you know, it's just a beautiful illustration. He's not just an inker; he's a full-blown illustrator. And this is just a beautiful painting he did of Captain America and a bunch of the Masters of Evil here. My guess this is probably late 80s. This is probably right during that time when he was with John Cena again on the Avengers, and they did the whole Masters of Evil storyline where they broke into the mansion and absolutely demolished the Avengers and almost killed Hercules. And I'm sure this is about that time, because what do you have here? You have the Wrecker, you've got Absorbing Man, you've got Goliath in the background. That was all members of that Masters of Evil there. But when I got to meet him in Baltimore here, I'm just going to let this sit here for a sec. When I got to meet him in Baltimore, I got to talk to him about these things, and I got to talk to him about the use of Zipatone and how, on a recent trip back in college, the only place I could find Zipatone from my college was to drive about an hour away over to Virginia Tech, and they had this wonderful art store called Mishmish, and it was just a throwback to old art stores, and they had this giant cardboard filing cabinet. It was probably about 3-4 feet high with lots of little drawers in there, and you'd pull them out, and not only would you have the letraset letters that you used to have to do for production, you would have to burnish the letters down onto your composition. That's how you created some of these comps. It wasn't for finished advertising; they were usually for comps, so you could present your ideas to the client. And so letraset letters, you had to do that, but they also had a ton of Zipatone, and that's these. I wish I could find some, because I know I still have some here at the house. And I gave him the story about how I was in there, visited a few years ago, the same store after all these years, because I graduated college in '89. So it's the first time, it was almost 30 years later, I come back to that store. It changed location, but they still had that letraset filing cabinet, and it still had letraset in there, and I'm just amazed at it. And I'm looking over the store for some other art supplies, and I see a young college student go over, and she starts opening the drawers and pulls out some of these shading sheets, and she's like, you could see the puzzled look on there. So I took it upon myself. I went over and asked her, "Do you know what this is?" And she had no idea. So it was nice. I told him the story about how I introduced that to another generation. But we got to talk about that. But the other thing that I got to do was, being such a fan, and the things that you see here, of course, I've got signed, but that's not the key part of my collection. And something I've never shared with you guys is I do collect original artwork. I haven't shown it off. And I've got a lot more than what I'm going to show here, and I pulled out some key pieces that Tom Palmer has done over the years in my collection. Now, I mean, yes, they're not, maybe some of these are not the top pieces in other collections, but these are the top pieces in my collection. Now I do, so I'm going to show you off. And so before I go on, what I did was I went and I talked with him, and I talked with his son, who were setting up on that Friday. I didn't expect him there till Saturday, to be honest with you, because that's what the advertisement said. But it said that, he wasn't going to be there, but I went by his table late on that first day just to see where he was going to be set up, so I'd be prepared Saturday morning to rush in. And lo and behold, there they are, they're setting up. And so I got to talk with them for a few minutes, and I didn't have any of the artwork with me. But what I did do is I kind of talked to him, and I said, look, I'm that super fan. I'm that guy who's going to bring you just a giant load, and it wasn't books. It's funny, I don't think I got a single comic book signed. It was all these prints that you just saw, as well as the original artwork. And I talked to him about the number of pages of artwork that I had, and I said, one, what do you want me to pay for that? And then the second thing is, when would be a good time to do it? Because I didn't want to get in line with everybody else and then walk right up there and be that guy that gives somebody like 50 different things. Even if I'm paying for it, it's just rude when you go to a comic show and you pull out just tons of stuff like that. It really is rude. And I was hoping to kind of set up a time when they weren't necessarily going to be scheduled to be at the table. So we kind of worked it out, and the way it ended up, I still ended up coming back about the time they said on Saturday, and they had already kept a line going. So I just got in line, and I pulled out the portfolio. I pulled out all the pages out of the sleeves in the portfolio, and I had it ready to go. And I let the guy behind me who had one book to get signed, and I said, "Hey, I've got a lot of stuff. Why don't you go ahead of me?" But I can't do that with everybody. So I ended up having the next guy saw what I was doing, and I asked. Basically, he did the same thing. He only had one or maybe two items, and I said, "Do you want to go ahead?" And he said, "No, he doesn't want to go because he wanted to see, because he saw the pages. He saw these pages I was pulling out, and he said, I want to watch this." So I went up there and I talked with Tom, full length at this point, because he hadn't seen some of these pages. I mean, some of these pages are from the 1970. A lot of them from the mid 80s as well. These other Avenger pages, but a lot of I've got a handful from the early 70s, and he hadn't seen them in all these years. So let me just start. I'll start showing you the artwork, and we'll start with not the Avengers. We will start with, I do own a Tomb of Dracula page here, and hang on, this is issue number 53. Didn't matter what page necessarily. It was an opportunity many years ago now. I can't imagine. I really have never priced out a lot of these pages. I've got, well, until we get to some of the Avenger pages, we'll get to that. But I wasn't paying a lot for these pages back 20 years ago. So there's my Gene Colan, Tom Palmer page there. Of course, I've got Marv Wolfman has signed this for me up at the top, and Tom has signed it right down here at the bottom. Of course, this is well after Gene Colan has passed as well. And then I had a page from John Byrne. This is from his X-Men Hidden Years run. And this was an interesting series if you guys have never read it. It was a continuation of the X-Men after they stopped producing original stories. And John Byrne kind of drew it in a way that was very similar to Neil Adams. And of course, you got Tom Palmer. Tom Palmer was the inker for Neil Adams on that run of X-Men with the Sentinels and Saren. How do you say it? The hidden, oh my God, the jungle. Oh my God, Kazar's place up in the Antarctic. Oh my God, I'm stumbling all over it. I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You got that. You got the Sentinels. You got Havoc, just getting his first costume, Living Pharaoh, stuff like that. Anyway, John Byrne continued drawing a lot of these stories. I want to say it went for at least 17 to 25 issues or something. So I picked this up from a dealer here in Maryland, and it wasn't that expensive. But there's my Tom Palmer, and it's also kind of checked off a box. I'll never be able probably to afford an original John Byrne X-Men page from his run, but there you go. I've got Storm, just a beautiful rendition of Storm right there by John Byrne. I mean, that's absolutely gorgeous. But the main bulk of my Tom Palmer collection ends up being in the Avengers, my favorite books. Not just that one particular issue I just showed you, but that his whole run, the 10 or so issues from 1970, 71. I'm not sure if it goes over into 71. But all those issues from about 255 up to 300 as well. I just remember the day that I picked up issue 255, and I wasn't, and I don't want to say he may have done the cover to that one as well. But I just remember being an illustrated cover. It was Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and I remember opening it up, and I was pre-ordering stuff, but I wasn't really paying attention to the previews. So I didn't know that Buscema and Palmer were going to be back on the Avengers. And I opened it up, and within 2 seconds, I'm like, something's different. This is Tom Palmer. I couldn't even recognize John Buscema. I could recognize Tom Palmer a million days, every day of the year. I mean, I could definitely see it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I had no idea that they would come back, and the art was just as good. So over the years, I've been picking up more and more pages. Hang on one sec. Monitor going to sleep. So, and again, guys, I'm sorry the video is going long. What do I say? Every comic has a story. Well, this is my story about one of my favorite artists. And so I apologize for the length. I hope you enjoy this. Stay for the rest of this video and check out this original artwork here. All right, this is issue 267. And I bought this because this illustration of the Wasp, I just absolutely adore this. I remember this particular dealer from, it's right here in Maryland. He had gotten a lot of pages from Tom Palmer, not a ton, but several, and it's somebody I'd kept in periodic contact with, and he had been, I'd bought several pages from him, but he didn't have as many as I first thought. I thought he had really just backed up the truckload and picked up a ton of these, but so I was asking him about specific pages and that I really, really liked. And so I was just going through the books and like, oh, I'd love that page. Well, this is one of those pages, and when this illustration of the Wasp, wow, it's just spectacular. And then let's see, this one, I'm not sure which issue this is. I want to say it's around I think it's 270. It was right before the whole Masters of Evil, but you've got Moon Knight here, you've got Black Knight, beautiful Black Knight, you got the Wasp. I was always a fan of the Wasp. Specifically about, I want to say after issue about, around the Taskmaster issues in 196. That's when I really, of course, George Perez was drawing a lot of that. And I just loved the Wasp, especially from that point on. She always had really good costumes after that. And she was fantastic in this run. She was the leader of the Avengers for the majority of this. Her conflict with Hercules was legendary. But beautiful Black Knight page there. And here's another one from the Kang storyline, Council of Kangs. This is from 268. Of course, you've got the, what's that, the Phantom, Space Phantom. I was going to say the Phantom Menace, but Space Phantom. Now, of course, this character is actually, when he appears here, it's the character that appears in issue number 2 of the Avengers. But these characters right here, they are from the present day. Of course, this is what, 1986, 87, somewhere in there. And so it was an interesting, of course, they're in limbo, and there is no time in limbo. So just great story. Got a beautiful picture of Kang's face right there. And as I said, Tom got to see all these pages again, and he didn't just sign them and brush them aside. He took his time and he looked at this. And again, I apologize to the guy behind me, and he's just like, no, just marveling at these pages I've got. Now, here's a great page with the Masters of Evil, Baron Zemo, and you can see the zipatone that Tom Palmer used. It's all over this page. And it wasn't one of those, he was strategic with its use. It wasn't like, I'm just using it, I'm putting it all over the place. I think a lot of artists would do that. And he used it for effect, not just, it wasn't a throwaway technique, I'll put it that way. I mean, he was really artful with the whole thing. But beautiful page. And then now I've got a lot more of these pages, but like I said, I pulled out some key, really nice pages from the 1980s run. And this is one of my favorites. In fact, I paid more for this one than I did with a bunch of the other ones even combined. But this is from, I want to say 265. It is the classic Submariner Hercules battle in that. It's right on the cover of that issue. Is it 265? Let me see if it even says. I'm sorry, 262. And love this page. I remember somebody was trying to sell the production stat to this page for, I think, around $200. And I'll be honest, for what I paid for this, this one's probably one of the last of these pages that I bought. I didn't pay much more than that for this. So I was very lucky to get this and give it a nice home. Just absolutely gorgeous. And as I said, he's sitting there taking his time, looking at these pages and just marveling at them. And I'm sitting there being all fanboy on him and everything, and just, really, really enjoying my experience with him. So now what I'm going to show you is I got 4 pages here that are just absolutely keys in my collection. This is from issue number 83, the Liberty. Is that the Ladies of Liberty, Liberty Legion? Can't remember, but it's the first Valkyrie. Of course, it was really the Enchantress, but it's from issue number 83. You've got the Masters of Evil at that time. You've got Claw, Radioactive Man, Whirlpool is in there. Beautiful battle scene. It's almost as good as the battle scene from issue number 79, but all in a self-contained issue. But here's one of those pages from that issue, and then I do have one. This is even better. This is a page that actually has Valkyrie on it right there. And you got the Black Widow, you got Claw, you got Medusa, you've got Scarlet Witch, just absolutely gorgeous. And then I had 2 pages. I want to say this is from issue 280. And if you remember issue number 80, not 280, that is the first appearance of Red Wolf. And so I've got a couple pages from there as well. And these are just absolutely gorgeous. This large rendition of the Scarlet Witch. I mean, she never looked better than this. Absolutely gorgeous. I was always also a big fan of Goliath. Hawkeye as Goliath. I always loved that character. I mean, that costume was a little goofy, but he made it work, right? But this art's just absolutely fantastic. And then my last page I want to show off to you guys is another page from that big close-up there of Red Wolf. That was just absolutely gorgeous. And as I said, I've got other pages, and I'm not that these are just ones that are a little bit more favorite. They're a little bit more of my favorites. I've got a ton more of these Avenger pages. Just absolutely, this right here are the keys in my collection. When you sit there and watch me pull comic books out, this right here is the real treasure for the most part. I mean, there's some great comic books in here, but pages like this don't come around. And I've talked with dealers at some of the cons that sell this, the Albert Moyes of the world. There's several dealers, and they have pages like this. And I looked at a page from issue 79, one of those the great Quicksilver Captain America battle pages that I was talking about earlier. And at the time, I mean, he had a $9,000 price tag on that. And I'm going, I mean, I can't even imagine that. And of course, he was encouraging me. It's basically like, do what he did. You trade up. You got pages, trade in. And I'm going, well, I don't have enough pages. The pages I have that are going to be worth that are the same pages that I'm trying to collect. So it's like, can't really do much with that. But I do want to show off one other little treat that you have on a lot of these pages. A lot of original artwork. And I'm going to turn it around. This is the back of the page. And let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit. Very light. But can you see the illustrations on the back here? This is John Buscema. Basically, he's not doodling. He's drawing. He's probably practicing how he wants that a particular picture to look. But this is probably one of the more extensive pages I've got that's got multiple little illustrations on the back. So that's one of those ones. I'd had this frame for a long time, and then I realized when I got that chance to meet Tom, I wanted to get it out. And when I pulled it out, I realized, I got those wonderful sketches on the back. I don't think I want to get it framed again, so I put it back in the portfolio so I can see both sides. But anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. As I said, 100th episode. Thank you so much. I would encourage you to share the videos, hit the thumbs up on the videos, because that gives, I guess it gives a better algorithm on YouTube. And I appreciate everybody that's subbed so far. I want to continue growing. We're closing in on that 500 mark. I don't know where this channel's going and everything, but I'm just going to continue to grow it and continue to grow the Collector Auctions brand. I sell some, I keep some, and I'm just having fun with it. So, guys, thank you for joining me, and I will see you for the next video. Take care.